The Cursed Bus. Out of respect to subjects of this essay, some names have been changed. If I ever had a year of bad luck, that year would be 2004. I set up an opportunity for perhaps the most exciting 12 months of my life. However, it didn't pan out that way. Returning to a small South Island town 4 years after I'd finished an outdoor pursuits course there, I had an unsanitary past to revisit. Little happens in small towns, and if you screw up, the trouble you cause is not forgotten. To avoid character attacks, I'll come clean. In October 1999, I punched a woman, close-fisted, plumb in the face. I was involved in an altercation with another man. Haymakers were thrown. She stood in close proximity, and in the ruckus, a misguided hook plonked her on the nose. This occurred at her family party, to which I had shown up uninvited. She ran back toward the house, proclaiming the assault. A bunch of men and boys set upon me, grabbing me by the scruff of my neck. Hurled into a fence and thrown out on the street, I vividly recall hearing the instruction, "You better run now, or you may not be able to run again." I lasted another week in Methven before returning north. Fast forward to the end of 2003. Something compelled me to seek meaningful work. I dropped out of an arts degree, itching to experience life outside of the classroom. With 3 seasons of simple climbing instruction, I wrote to my former course mentor. In 1999, Peter was a highly driven 26-year-old, a speaker of Spanish and Japanese, daredevil skier, skilled mountaineer, and competent kayaker. He was an overachieving outdoor guru I looked up to. "My goal," he told our group at the beginning of the year, "is to sustain lifelong friendships with all of you." He still owned the course. I contacted him requesting a job, informing him of my 3 seasons of experience as a climbing instructor and live-in camp counselor. "Will you get your bus license?" "Absolutely." This was my opportunity to emulate his role. I had a chance to live in the South Island again, to fix any wrongdoings, to take advantage of what the outdoor pursuits industry had to offer, one I had let slip years earlier. Driving my Mazda 626 almost 700 kilometers to Wellington, I made the voyage across the Cook Strait to the South Island and drove a further 350 kilometers from Picton to Lyttelton. At Peter's house, I was introduced to my 2 co-workers, course supervisor Lara and outdoor pursuits enthusiast. We conducted a brief meeting before guests arrived for a gathering. I'd met Mitch previously, but not Lara. I heard from others what an awesome chick she was and how I'd embrace working alongside her. While old friends caught up, I hung on the party fringes. All nerves, I had no idea what the outdoorsy crowd expected of me as they spoke about climbing routes, new gear they'd purchased, and the achievements of others, names I didn't recognize. I brought a bottle of vodka with me. I mixed it with Sprite and lightly sipped. I tried to build Dutch courage as sips turned into slurps and gulps. A woman I'd been speaking to earlier in the night performed with keyboard and microphone. I hummed along next to her, off-key. I woke with a headache and didn't remember much of the evening, only that the crowd had become apprehensive of me and my slurred words. I recalled a conversation about my replacing a much-loved co-supervisor from the previous year, the result of a heroin addiction. I would need to reach above the bar right from the beginning. Lara, Mitch, and I shared a 3-bedroom apartment above the student accommodation. Lara's room was fully furnished. Mitch placed a mattress on the floor. I couldn't afford both transportation and a bed. With rent deducted from my salary, it would cost me a month's pay. "You're going to sleep on a mattress all year?" Lara said. "I don't have the funds for a bed. Should be okay though, right?" "Totally. But remember, we have to be role models. Perhaps you can think it over before the students arrive on Wednesday. It would be nice if you both had beds. This is a really hard job, and a comfortable sleep is a worthwhile investment." Mitch smiled, explaining he had his girlfriend and dog back in Christchurch and would only be rooming with us on his 2 weekly working days. Amongst manila folders and printed A4 sheets, Lara straightened her sitting posture. "It may seem intimidating to you, but working on OPC is definitely an experience where you'll get out what you put in. Last year was amazing. I made the bestest little brothers and sisters anyone could make." I was irked by her language, yet I saw clarity in her advice. My goal was the same as Peter's, to make lifelong friendships with each student. Lara disclosed course rules and regulations. Students and supervisors are required to wear helmets at all times when snowboarding or skiing. "I'm not wearing a helmet," I said, damning myself at the release of vocalized thought. My mountain experience, the liberty of wearing a beanie and the risk of possible crash, made the adrenaline of straight-lining down Mount Hutt's towers all the more appealing. The helmet strap strangling the neck and chafing the chin, the bulbous polystyrene and fiberglass identifying me as a cotton wool wrapped pussy, was a robbery of my reckless youth. I lacked the awareness of responsibility in the 21st century, a position Peter never had to approach. In his time, we jumped from the 17-meter-high Rakaya Gorge Bridge into shallow water, where we'd have to lift our legs upon hitting the surface, our hinds skimming the riverbed despite the buoyancy of our life jackets. We spent days trekking into southwestland. A helicopter took a raft and a keg of beer to the Landsborough River, where we drank at trip's end. These are just 2 examples of the antics that took place in 1999. Risk management was not something Peter took seriously, and we somehow avoided tragedy. But in 2004, he was an established businessman and needed to minimize all possibility of harm through scrutinous planning and safety assessment. It was a top priority for Lara, and I could feel the prickles on her skin when she lifted her voice. "It's essential we put safety first. This is always our main concern." Equipment was next on the list. Students' families paid for rental of most outdoor gear, but as supervisors, we were to supply our own. I assessed the apparatus needed for the various pursuits: kayaking, boat, paddle, life jacket, and spray skirt; climbing, rope, harness, chalk bag, Gregory's, shoes and carabiners; mountain biking, bike puncture repair kit, bike and spare tires; snowboarding, board, goggles, pants, jacket, bindings, and gloves. I'd not taken costs into consideration. I wasn't skilled in any of these activities. I lacked the temperament, leg strength, and flexibility to climb well. I never managed to balance and swing my hips with a flat paddle to complete an Eskimo roll. The best I could do was slip my paddle over the kayak while upside down, grab both sides, release the spray skirt, curl forward and exit the boat while holding on. In short, a wet exit. I lacked the muscular endurance and fearlessness required for mountain biking, and was both Gumby and impatient with cycle mechanics. Only snowboarding came somewhat naturally, so it was my choice to invest in the gear for the winter season, to abandon the concept of spending thousands of dollars to partake in other activities. I was a foolish man indeed. The students arrived. Majority female, they were a colourful and starry-eyed bunch. One teen stood out, a muscular and restless, yet confident youth. He seemed older than the others, and his twitchiness was compensated by enthusiasm. His name was Stu. I'd have to learn the names of 14 live-in students, 2 locals, and an English tutor on exchange. Lara carried herself with volume and spark. Her confidence and exuberance came naturally. Mitch promoted himself as an outdoor guru. I introduced myself as the bus driver and told jokes that fell flat. In no time, the students sensed my anxiety. I thought perhaps being quiet in the background would allow us to develop relationships. The raucous, bubbly pair I worked alongside brought energy and joy out of the students. My attempts to be heard were clumsy and pitiful. I set up Goodbye Pork Pie in the student common room, promoting it as one of the great New Zealand films. The teens writhed and moaned, exhausted and bored well before the credits rolled, annoyed at me for having wasted their time. My head was crowded with doubt, and in an attempt to get the students' attention, I assumed the role of disciplinarian in the group. Checking curfews and ensuring the students were well behaved on public outings made me look like an asshole, but it was the vacant role neither of the fun duo chose. Someone had to be the bad guy. Lara transported the students in our course bus, a 3.8-ton 19-seater, while I set my license. A gruff yet encouraging Hornby truck driver tutored and passed me for my heavy trade transport permit. Once I had my passenger endorsements, I could relieve Lara of her backup duty and take on the role I was employed for. Unfortunately, the examiner, an insipid Ashburton senior citizen with bent spectacle frames, failed me. I didn't pass, I told Lara, hanging my head. What do you mean you didn't pass? When can you resit? I have an appointment in a fortnight. She rolled her eyes. My job is Monday to Friday, excluding Wednesday. Sure, the last 2 Sundays were okay, but I have important plans this weekend. I'm going to have to cancel them. I'll make it up to you. I'll cover for you Monday and Tuesday. I asked Peter to employ experienced bus drivers. You're going to have to explain to the students that there will be no activity on Sunday. They'll be quite upset. She filled out an incident report and faxed it to Peter in the conflict resolution section, noting what she'd stated. Employ experienced bus drivers. I obtained my bus license and took the wheel. Lara enjoyed popular animated films and radio hits with the students. This included the Los Angeles act Black Eyed Peas' worldwide hit, Let's Get Retarded. It was the theme song she played on the bus to get them motivated for their following activity. When the title and chorus hit, the students would wave their hands and sing along. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Association for Retarded Children requested that the record company executives change the lyrics and song title to Let's Get It Started. Fair enough. I could see how this might be disrespectful. We can't sing these words anymore because they are very offensive, Lara told the students. How this was brought about only because of American mainstream judgment puzzled me. Either don't sing from the start, or keep singing. As the months crept on, things didn't go my way. A gust of wind picked up before a climbing excursion, and a door slammed on my finger, meaning I couldn't climb. I moped around, head down. I've never seen an instructor behave so inappropriately, Lara said. Stu saw I was struggling and took the role as Mitch's climbing assistant, encouraging the others. I was fired from my part-time kitchen hand job for my reaction to an anxiety attack, misplaced the keys to the bus, and crashed my car. On my days off, I'd been seen in a legless state, drinking others' half-finished vessels at the local pub, come closing time. The community approached Lara with suggestions for my dismissal. She passed on their concerns and her support for them. Peter gave me a verbal warning and encouraged me to change my ways for the students' sake. I'd put on a lot of weight and hadn't cut my hair since arriving south. I knew I had to stick it out. I managed my drinking and avoided the public, taking more care of the students. Following a Christchurch dive training session, I pulled the bus over on Breddings Road between Dunsandel and Rakaya. Through the pine trees lay a huge abandoned fuel bunker, compiled of 97,000 bricks at a volume capacity of over 3 million litres, filled with car wrecks, tractor tyres, oil drums, iron sheets, jerry cans, road cones, a sheep carcass, paint tins, and wire fencing. The unexplained whole meant nothing to the students. They were without the fascination I'd held half a decade earlier. Pulling out onto State Highway 1, I took the bus to the shoulder to allow 2 speeding cars to pass. They blasted their horns. I put my right hand out the window and raised my middle finger. Addressing the rearview mirror, I noticed looks of shock on the students' faces. As it was hitting sunset, the radio turned itself off. The inner lights dimmed, and I was concerned I'd lose the headlights. I dropped the bus off outside the mechanic's workshop and called him in the morning. "What's wrong with the bus?" I asked. "Yeah, electrics. Yeah." "How did it happen?" "Wait for the spark plug signal to go off before turning the ignition." "I always do. When will the bus be ready?" "Wednesday morning." "Okay, thanks. See you later, Dan." "Righto." I filled out an incident report and faxed it to Peter. I noticed an updated version had been sent. In the conflict resolution section, Lara had written, "Employ experienced bus drivers."